II of World War III. That was a little skit from Saturday Night Live. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a way of looking at this conflict that's not sort of the mainstream narrative. We're going to talk about the role of British Petroleum and Iran. Okay, so we're going to take a look at Promethean. Why am I having trouble here? There we go. Not Iraq 2.0. So, Barbara Boyd of Promethean Updates. Okay, so there's two women here who are sort of the editors-in-chief of this channel, and they have a very interesting perspective. They are saying that the world has been held hostage by the city of London, and that what we're seeing, all of this movement of jobs overseas and the destruction of the industrial base, is all due to because of a residue of the British Empire, and the fact that like trillions of dollars are cleared. Well, I don't know. There's a clearinghouse. Don't quite understand the actual mechanics of this, but they're saying that Iraq and all of the Middle East problems are due because of a financialization of that area of the world, and whether it's Khomeini or the Shah of Iran, since for 100 years they've just been British puppets, and she's going to lay it out for us really quickly. And then we're going to take a look at the National Defense Strategy. All right, and so we're going to take a look at this document and see how it relates to what's happening here with the conflict in Iran. So I'll shut up and let's give her a listen and see what she has to say.
All right. To understand what Trump just struck, you need to understand what Iran actually is in the global power structure. And that story begins in 1908. In that year, a British speculator named William Knox D'Arcy struck oil in southwest Persia. He had purchased exclusive extraction rights from the Persian Shah for a pittance, just 16% of profits, and with no Iranian allowed to audit the books. From that single concession, the Anglo Persian Oil Company was born. It later became the Anglo Iranian Oil Company. Today, you know it as British Petroleum, BP. Winston Churchill, as First Lord of the Admiralty, called it, quote, a prize from fairyland, beyond our wildest dreams. And he meant it. The British government bought a 51% controlling stake in 1914. The Royal Navy ran on Iranian oil. Britain's entire standard of living in the first half of the 20th century was subsidized by wealth extracted from Iran. In 1950, Abadan had become the world's largest refinery. The Anglo Iranian Oil Company controlled all oil in Iran, while Iranian workers lived in shanty towns without running water. Think about that. The same empire that people think of as a quaint historical artifact was literally powered by Iranian oil, and the Iranians got almost nothing. So when Iranian nationalists finally rose up and elected Mohammad Mossadegh as prime minister in 1951, a man who nationalized the oil company for his own people, what happened? The British and the CIA overthrew him in 1953. Operation Ajax, they called it. They installed the Shah as their puppet. And who did they use on the ground to create the chaos for the coup? The Muslim Brotherhood, the same organization Trump designated as terrorists just weeks ago. Mark Curtis documents how the British and the CIA paid the Ayatollah Khamenei, who was Khomeini's own mentor, for street violence during the uprising. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. When the Shah outlived his usefulness, what happened? The British and Americans acquiesced to Khomeini's revolution in 1979. One puppet replaced another. The Muslim Brotherhood's ideology became the scaffold for Khomeini's theocratic state, its belief system. And the backward system of constant war between Israel, the Arab states, and Iran has been profitable for the City of London each time it has happened. The City of London sets global oil prices. It ensures virtually all oil shipments. It banks the sovereign wealth of its former Middle East colonies. And as we've documented extensively, it functions as the premier money laundromat for the drug, weapons, and trafficking mafias that thrive on regional chaos.
Okay, this
That
is
is the
super
system.
important.
The
We're
mullahs
going to
are
play that again. Okay, so she's saying, right in the terms of the petrodollar, that all of the oil that goes around the world is insured by, Lloyd's of London, or insured by British companies. And so this petrodollar, while being shuttled logistically across the world in oil tankers from the Persian Gulf to America, the financial aspect of it all goes through London, is what I believe that she's saying. And I want to listen to her again here say what she just said.
It banks the sovereign wealth of its former Middle East colonies. And as we've documented extensively, it functions as the premier money laundromat, weapons, and trafficking mafias that thrive on chaos.
Again.
That mentor for street violence during the uprising. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. When the Shah outlived his usefulness, what happened? The British and Americans acquiesced to Khomeini's revolution in 1979. One puppet replaced another. The Muslim Brotherhood's ideology became the scaffold for Khomeini's theocratic state, its belief system. And the backward system of constant war between Israel, the Arab states, and Iran has been profitable for the City of London each time it has happened. The City of London sets global oil prices. It ensures virtually all oil shipments. It banks the sovereign wealth of its former Middle East colonies. And as we've documented extensively, it functions as the premier money laundromat for the drug, weapons, and trafficking mafias that thrive on regional chaos. That is the system. The mullahs are not an independent power. They are the current franchise holders of a British financial operation that has controlled Iran for 118 years. And the wars between Israel and the Arab states, between Sunni and Shia, between all the parties in the Middle East, these are managed conflicts designed to keep the region unstable so the financial architecture stays in place. So here's the question no one in the media is asking. Why now? Not just because of the nuclear program, not just because of the missiles. The real answer is that Donald Trump has spent the last year systematically dismantling the British financial architecture in the Middle East, and the mullahs were the last obstacle. Look at what he's already done. Since Trump assumed office the second time, he secured over $2 trillion in Gulf sovereign wealth fund investments, money that used to sit in City of London banks. It's now committed to American manufacturing, energy, and AI infrastructure. He organized the Arab world and Israel into his board of peace, ending the carnage in Gaza and beginning to rebuild it. The president of Kazakhstan.
Man, I'm having trouble here. Should have rebooted my computer before we started. Okay. So, what did she just say? She said trillions that have been sitting in British banks are now earmarked for construction projects around the world. All right? So Trump is looking at the world the way a general contractor does. It's about building. So let's listen to that again, if I can manage this YouTube. I don't know why every time I tap something, of course, because when you're live, everything loves to go wrong. All right, let's listen to Barbara again here.
Architecture stays in place. So here's the question no one in the media is asking. Why now? Not just because of the nuclear program, not just because of the missiles. The real answer is that Donald Trump has spent the last year systematically dismantling the British financial architecture in the Middle East, and the mullahs were the last obstacle. Look at what he's already done. Since Trump assumed office the second time, he secured over $2 trillion in Gulf sovereign wealth-funded investments, money that used to sit in City of London banks. It's now committed to American manufacturing, energy, and AI infrastructure. He organized the Arab world and Israel into his board of peace, ending the carnage in Gaza and beginning to rebuild it. The president of Kazakhstan captured it perfectly when he called Trump's strategy peace through construction. Peace, in other words, through economic development.
The board of peace is widely expected to respond directly to new realities by reinforcing existing multilateral efforts. The world has never seen a move like this. It is absolutely unprecedented because, in essence, peace through construction is a very innovative concept or project.
Trump does.
Okay, we're going to listen to that again. Peace through construction. Now, Trump built in New York, and it's just common knowledge that if you built anything in New York during the 80s, during the heydays of Trump's New York building spree, you had to deal with Sammy the Bull. It's just a fact of life. They said to Sammy, asked Sammy the Bull, okay, you know, you've done a lot in your life. What, I'm sure things you're proud of, things you're not so proud of. What's one thing that you're super proud of? He says he remembers sitting, having a cigar, drinking some cognac, and looking out at the skyline of New York and thinking, all of those lights, all of those buildings, they had to come through me. Because the mafia ran the unions and ran all the concrete that was ever poured had to be sanctioned by the New York mob. So Trump knew how to build in the with the power structure surrounding New York was just all mobbed up, different types of mafias. Well, what is a royal family other than just a British mafia, right? Or during the Holy Roman Empire, Germanic tribes, Germanic fiefdoms were nothing more than a Germanic type of mafia, a power structure built not by anything other than like family ties and strong armed tactics. So, in a way, Trump is just doing what he's always done, building in the environment of kings and queens and mob bosses, right? So Denmark, Canada, Greenland, aren't all those monarchies? I'm not sure if I'm totally correct about Greenland, but isn't Canada and Britain still a freaking monarchy? You know, come on. So we think we're all that much advanced, but we're still, you know, as we come on the 250-year anniversary, we still are living with the residue of the British Empire. And it looks like, you know, you listen to Scott Ritter, whose opinions I really respect, and Judge Napolitano. He's got a podcast. He's got Colonel McGregor on there, Douglas McGregor. And they all speak eloquently about these issues, and they all, not all the time, but many times are super critical of Trump and what he's doing in his foreign policy. And there's lots of people saying, oh, this is supposed to be the anti-war president. Well, according to Barbara here, what's her last name? Barbara Boyd. According to Barbara Boyd, what we're witnessing is cleanup time, okay? We're cleaning up the residue of the British domination of financial services and the last vestiges of the British Empire. That's the argument they're making, and so we're going to listen to the Board of Peace. I'm not sure which gentleman here is speaking, but let's listen to it again.
Through economic development.
The Board of Peace is widely expected to respond directly to new realities by reinforcing existing multilateral efforts. The world has never seen a move like this. It is absolutely unprecedented because, in essence, peace through construction is a very innovative concept or project.
Trump doesn't.
Peace through construction. Peace through construction. Why isn't that a headline somewhere? Peace through construction. So we're seeing obviously some strategic destruction going on here, but you always got a demo if you're going to build. Garbage run, you know. Debris cleanup. It's a part and parcel of of any renovation project. All right, so let's see what Barbara Boyd has to continue with here.
Designated the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, cutting off the infrastructure the British have used to manipulate the region for nearly a century. He brought Egypt's El-Sisi, the man who actually defeated the Brotherhood, to the table as a central partner. He's working with Turkey and Qatar, countries that Netanyahu doesn't want involved, because this isn't Netanyahu's plan, it's Trump's plan. And think about what Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, said earlier in January, that 50% of his job involves national security. That's because the real war isn't kinetic, it's financial. It's about breaking the City of London's control over the flow of money in the Middle East. The only thing standing in the way of this entire new architecture was the Iranian regime, still pursuing a nuclear weapon, still pledging to destroy both Israel and the United States, still developing the ballistic missile capability to accomplish that, and still funding proxies from Lebanon to Yemen to make war. You cannot build a board of peace while the mullahs are arming for war. You cannot redirect $1 trillion in Gulf investment and threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz. You cannot rebuild Gaza while Iranian proxies are rearming. That's why this happened, not because Trump is a warmonger, because the mullahs were the last piece on the British chessboard, and they refused to leave it voluntarily. They rejected every deal. And as Trump put it in his address this morning,
we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore.
Are you worried that using your home address for business puts Is your privacy at risk? At iPostal One?
Sorry about that. The pleasures of live television. Okay, let's continue.
So here's the bottom line. We are at the earliest stages of this conflict, and the situation is rapidly evolving. Iran has already launched retaliatory strikes against the Gulf, targeting U.S. assets in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the UAE. This is serious and it's dangerous. But I will tell you what I know about watching 50 years of these wars. This is not Iraq. Trump is not dismantling a state to install new puppets. He is removing the final obstacle to a peace architecture he has been building for over a year. And Vice President Vance, a Marine veteran and the most vocal opponent of the forever wars in the administration, has told us there is no chance this becomes one. The Democrats and their friends in London will try to play this in the midterms. They'll scream regime change. They'll invoke Iraq. They'll call Trump a madman. And they will never, ever tell you about the 118 years of British financial control over Iran that made this moment inevitable. Now, we firmly believe that we can defend the president's action as just, and that grave and serious intelligence, much of it presently classified, supports his action. But all of us know exactly how the Democrat lunatics and their friends in London will try to play this, and we plan here not to let them have their game. That's what we're here for. Promethean Action will be covering this as it evolves, so subscribe to our free newsletter. The link is in the description. Become a paying member or a contributor, because we need to build this fight right now for 2026. There's no better way to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our independence than by finishing off the British Empire once and for all. This has been your Saturday Wrap. Thanks for listening.
Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter
right.
at PrometheanAction.com.
Promethean Action, a new sort of feed in my news collection. So now we're going to look at this idea. So this isn't a war about territory. This isn't even a war about oil. It's not a war about regime change. This is a new energy war redirecting global capital. And you see the roots of this ideology in this document here, the 2006 National Defense Strategy. And I put together a little notebook LM video for us to take a look at. And so we can look at it right here to give us sort of, it's only a few minutes long, give us a background or a foundation to sort of understand what we just watched. Okay, here we go.
All right, today we're going to dive into a document that is making some serious waves. It's a proposed 2026 National Defense Strategy. And let me tell you, this is not just another policy paper. It's a potential blueprint for a totally new vision of America's role in the world. And it's all built around this idea of restoring peace through strength.
And what you're seeing here are actual pages from that strategy memo. It lays out a really bold and, to be honest, pretty controversial new path for the US military. It's basically calling for a complete pivot away from the kinds of strategies that have really defined American foreign policy for the last 30 years. And if you want to boil the whole thing down to just one line, this is it. This quote pretty much sums up the entire vibe of the document. A really decisive move away from what it calls utopian idealism and a sharp turn toward hard-nosed realism. So, to really get what this new doctrine is all about, we've got to start where the authors do, right? We have to look at their diagnosis of the problem they think they're solving. In their view, why is such a dramatic change even necessary in the first place?
Well, let's just say the strategy's assessment doesn't pull any punches.
It paints this picture of a post-Cold War America that just totally squandered its position as the world's undisputed superpower. The authors are basically arguing that a whole generation of leadership chased after misguided foreign policies that at the end of the day made the nation weaker. And this diagnosis, it gets really specific. It builds into this detailed critique of what they see as the failures of the last 30 years. The document actually spends a lot of time outlining exactly where they think US foreign and defense policy went wrong. And look, the list of critiques is long, and it covers a lot of ground. It connects things that you might not think are related, from these endless wars overseas to a weakened industrial base right here at home. It weaves them all into this one big story of strategic failure. The main idea here is that by focusing so much on these huge global projects, America forgot about its own foundations and let its allies become far too dependent. And this quote right here, it really gives you a feel for the pretty harsh tone of the whole thing. It uses this really strong critical language to frame past military interventions as just profound mistakes that wore down the military and put off crucial modernizations. Okay, so after basically tearing down the last 30 years of policy, the document then offers its own solution. And the entire strategy is built on 4 central pillars, or what the document calls lines of effort. This is really the heart of the whole plan. So here they are, the big 4. Number 1, defend the US homeland. Number 2, deter China in the Indo-Pacific. 3, increase burden sharing with allies. And number 4, supercharge the US defense industrial base. So let's break these down one by one, see what they're all about.
All right, pillar number 1. This is a huge shift in priorities. I mean, after decades of commitments all over the world, this strategy says loud and clear that the number 1 job of the US military is to defend America itself, its borders, its airspace, and the entire Western Hemisphere.
Next up, pillar 2, and it's all about China. Now, the way they frame this is interesting. It's not about looking for a fight. The idea is to use strength to create a stable balance of power in that really vital Indo-Pacific region. The goal, they state, is to stop any single country from completely dominating that critical area.
Pillar 3 is where we see a call for a total reset of America's alliances. The idea is to move allies from being, dependents to being real partners who pull their own weight both financially and militarily. It's a pretty big shift in thinking. And last but not least, Pillar 4 turns the focus back home. The goal here is to completely revitalize America's defense industry, bring production back to the US, and make sure America can be, in their words, the world's premier arsenal for itself and its allies.
So, how does all this stuff actually translate into action? I mean, what does it look like on the ground? Let's dig into the practical implications, especially for how the US would deal with its allies and how it redefines threats, particularly in its own backyard.
Okay, so this is where the document drops a brand new term on us, the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Now, you might remember the original Monroe Doctrine from way back in the 1820s warned European powers to stay out of the Americas. Well, this corollary is like a 21st century update. It asserts the right to use military force not just against other countries, but against threats like narco-terrorist groups right here in the Western Hemisphere.
Which, of course, leads to the big question that comes right out of that 3rd pillar on burden sharing. What exactly is this new strategy demanding from America's allies?
Well, the answer they give is just one number. But wow, it's a big one, 5%. The strategy proposes a whole new global standard that says all allies should spend a total of 5% of their GDP on defense and security. Now, that 5% isn't just some random number they pulled out of a hat. It has a specific breakdown. So it takes that old 2% NATO target for military spending, which, let's be honest, a lot of allies already have trouble hitting, and jacks it up to 3.5% of GDP. Then on top of that, it adds another 1.5% for other security spending. That is a massive increase, a truly seismic shift in global defense investment. Okay, so when you step back and you look at all this stuff together, the tough critique of the past, the 4 pillars, the new demands on allies, what's the big picture? What is this all really signaling?
What it all points to is a very deliberate move away from being the global policeman. It's no accident that the document even uses the term Department of War, a name that hasn't been used since 1947. That's a symbolic choice, right? It's meant to hammer home this idea of returning to a core mission of fighting wars and defending the nation, and rejecting what the authors see as that utopian idealism of the last few decades.
And the authors themselves are pretty clear that this isn't some small adjustment. As his final quote shows, they see this sharp shift as something that's absolutely urgent and necessary to get off a path that they believe is headed straight for disaster.
And that really leaves us with a huge question to chew on. You know, whether you agree with it or not, this document forces us all to think about this. What would the world actually look like if America really did pivot from being a global policeman to being a hard-nosed realist that's focused only on its own interests? What kinds of power vacuums might open up, and who or what would rush in to fill them?
Unofficial king of Lincoln live, and on the replay ride, yeah. Hit that follow, keep that streak
alive. You're watching the Unofficial King of LinkedIn Live, bringing to you the world of geopolitics, right to a computer screen near you. So we talked about the new energy war, that this move in Iran is not a power play, God bless it, a power play as far as territory or regime change, that whole thing of regime change. The first thing that we did in Iraq, when we went in during the Bush, Obama, Clinton dynasty, during those years, the Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney years, we went in and we fired everybody, right? And all of the people that we fired, all the people we let go, turned into Al-Qaeda. That's not exactly the best move, unless your objective is to keep that area of the world destabilized, because everybody knows where there is destabilization and where there's war, you fund both sides and the funders make all the money. And that's sort of the argument Barbara Boyd is making. So within this context, you have this old world, this old petrodollar, where all of these transactions, all the insurance in terms of how the oil is distributed and shipped around the world, it might be a petrodollar, but that dollar is being laundered in a laundromat known as the City of London. Trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars are controlled still by the remnants of the British Empire. And that this strike in Iran, they're not the same thing with Maduro in Venezuela. They're not firing the current administration. They're saying, okay, we're taking out the bad guys now. This is your government. Let's work together. Let's make Venezuela great again. Let's make Iran great again. You guys keep your infrastructure, but let's build a company that's not hostile to Israel and that's hostile to the No More Death to America business. Let's make some money. Let's build some oceanfront property, and let's get the party started. That's the argument that Barbara Boyd is making here in Promethean Update channel. So if you're interested in this video that I just played, let's get rid of this commercial here. Man, I need to restart my computer. Right, so just go ahead and search for Not Iraq 2.0, the 118-year empire Trump just ended. So go ahead and search for that. Let me get out of the way here. Right? not Iraq 2.0, the 118-year empire Trump just ended. And that even though you have guys like, who I respect a lot, Scott Ritter, Judge Napolitano, Colonel Douglas McGregor, who have just like incredible insights when it comes to the world of politics, they are giving this action, this strike against Iran, they're giving Trump a pretty hard time. But if you listen to Barbara Boyd and this Promethean Update channel, they're framing it in a completely different light. And if Barbara Boyd and her partner, I forget her partner's name, I'll get it next time, if they are correct, we truly are, after 250 years, sitting on a strong, solid path of freedom and a new golden age of construction, wealth, affluence, and liberal tiers that you can float a raft onto. Anyways, so this has been our Sunday transmission. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you next time. Au revoir.